Hey guys, what's up? Again, it's Wholesome Joe back with another video. This time we're taking a break from the cosplay stuff, the Ghostbusters props, the Power Rangers helmets, to do a video about one of my other favorite subjects, which is filmmaking. Now, some of you who are new to my channel might not even realize that I am actually a filmmaker. I've directed, written, produced, and done all sorts of other jobs, edited, acted in several feature films, multitudes of short films. Some of them have won awards at film festivals. I have several feature films that have distribution. Some of them you can watch online on platforms like Tubi and Amazon Prime, to name a few. I actually have been working on my latest feature film called The Marks for close to around 4 or 5 years now. It's been a very long and arduous process, and I will not say that it has gone exactly the way that I had hoped it to go. This video is going to kind of provide an update for those of you who might be paying attention to that part of my life, as it were, as I've been working on that movie for quite some time. So before we get into that, I'm just gonna take a few minutes to just show you the trailer, because I feel like the trailer explains the plot of the movie better than I could probably explain it. I will give you a brief synopsis. It is about backyard wrestling. It is a comedy, and a lot of people have said that it reminds them of a movie like Clerks by Kevin Smith, which to me is a huge compliment. So let's watch the trailer.
Mark, a wrestling fanatic who believes that professional wrestling is 100% legit.
There's just something magical about seeing another man grind another man's face off on the side of a steel stretcher.
Meet Jonathan, mild-mannered video store clerk by day.
We just fast forward through this part?
No, it's the law.
Backyard wrestling promoter by night.
I got 2 words for ya. Battle Royal.
And Maggie Lightning, star of the Mosh Pit Wrestling Association.
That's my girl! You sure put a hurt on that old weasel box.
My granny taught me a few things in my life: how to knit a cross stitch and how to suplex.
And daughter of legendary pro wrestler, the real deal, Jack Dixon.
Jack, open up! I am late for work!
What the hell, Regina? I'm trying to sleep. No!
Maggie, you've got what it takes to make it in the business.
Jonathan will do anything it takes to get Maggie out of Grandma's yard and into the big leagues.
Wait, did we?
Did what?
Eventually, we can break out of the yard and go where the big boys play.
What if I don't want to go where the big boys play?
Everyone wants to go where the big boys play.
You still got your little backyard shenanigans?
MPWA. You cannot just waltz back into my life and expect everything to be fine. Jonathan, you of all people should know that.
In this three-way dance, only one champion can emerge victorious.
We have a new era in Mosh Pit Wrestling Association.
In a comedy about friendship, family, and grown men wearing spandex, to the marks, wrestling is as real as it gets.
I'm going to be calling code enforcement about what you're doing here.
All right, so now that you've seen the trailer, you have a better idea of what kind of movie The Marks is. Now, I said before it was a comedy. It's a very low budget film. Obviously, we didn't have a lot of resources to work with, but I've been doing low budget films for a long time, and that is definitely going to be the focus of the type of filmmaking that we're going to talk about in most of these videos, which is low budget filmmaking, because I just don't have the funds to make big budget movies, and I know a lot of you out there don't have those types of funds either. So let's turn the clock back back to the year 2019, when I decided that I was going to take an old script I had already written called Suplex that I actually attempted to try to make, and we got probably, I don't know, over halfway through shooting of this other wrestling movie called Suplex, and realized that I had bit off more than I could chew. I was reviewing the footage, and I just wasn't happy with how things were going. And instead of, continuing on and trying to put out something I wasn't happy with, we decided to ultimately put a lid on that, can it, as it were, and we ended up scrapping the whole thing. A couple of years after that, 2019, I decided to revisit the concept of Suplex, but try to take the basis of the story and turn it into something that would be easier to do on a lower budget, so that we would not run into the same problems that we ran into the previous time. So I reached out to my friend Jonathan Reels, who had worked with me on another project, which I will link down in the description below. It was a Ghostbusters fan series, which I wish we had gotten to finish completely, but we did not. I had a lot of fun working on that and meeting all of the people who worked on that with me. Learned a lot of stuff doing that as well. He's a huge wrestling fan, just like I'm a huge wrestling fan. I actually used to wrestle myself back in the day in the Georgia independent wrestling scene. So I have a lot of connections, and this is one thing that if you take away from this video, one of the main things that you need when it comes to indie filmmaking is just resources, and having connections and having resources for things like being a former wrestler means that you'll have access to a lot of stuff that your average person wouldn't have access to. And so I know that I had access to all these things, so I was able to write a script around the things that I had access to, such as wrestling rings, wrestlers, things like that, venues, locations, and things, which made filming the movie on a low budget much, much, much easier. So I contacted Jonathan. Jonathan agreed that he liked the idea, and so he and I co-wrote the script for the movie that would be called The Mark originally, and I'll get to why that is in just a second. Originally, the title of the movie was called The Mark. It was supposed to be about a guy named Mark who was an obsessed wrestling fan, who was kind of a closet wrestling fan, and then he gets invited to this underground backyard wrestling society, and then he meets the daughter of his most favorite wrestler ever, and then a whole bunch of craziness ensues, and the daughter trains Mark, and it's a whole thing, and the whole movie is about Mark. So we started shooting that movie. That's the script we originally wrote. We started shooting it on day 3 or 4, maybe it was. We actually lost the actor who was playing Mark. So we had some work to do. So myself and Jonathan took, over the course of like 2 or 3 days, I want to say it was, we completely rewrote the script. And we had already shot 3 or 4 days worth of footage at this point, and we had built a 90s VHS rental store, which you probably saw in the trailer. We built that completely from scratch, and we didn't want to lose all that footage. So we rewrote the story to basically not be about Mark anymore. We made it more of an ensemble piece, and we put the focus on the legendary wrestler's daughter, Maggie. And so she's the sort of focal point now. And of course, we've got Jonathan's character, whose name is Jonathan, in the movie as well. And we just sort of made it an ensemble cast piece instead of it being about one guy. Sometimes things like that happens, and you just got to roll with it. And I think everyone who has seen the movie will agree that us having to do that made us have to think a lot harder and get really creative, and it just made for a much, much, much better movie overall. So I'm glad that happened, even though it was kind of a pain and it sucked, to have to replace our actor and have all that happen right at the beginning of filming. But at the end of the day, I think it worked out, and that was the best thing that could possibly happen. So we shot for 21, 22 something days over the course of a pretty long amount of time, because you're doing this on a low budget. You're working around everyone's schedules. Not everyone is available all the days, and we had a pretty big cast, so we had to work around that. But we finally got it done. We got it in the can. We got it. I was editing. I edited the entire film myself. I was editing as we were shooting, so that way in case we missed anything, I could go back and get it, things like that, get our pickups and all that stuff out of the way, so that once we wrapped, I already had half the movie edited. So I got the movie edited. Myself and Jonathan and his friend Seth, who together they have sort of a parody band called Seth and Willie Fred. Between the three of us, we wrote and recorded all original music for the soundtrack. I did some score for it. I like to do synthwave, sort of retro-y style music. So I wrote some score for the movie as well. And then we had our premiere last year at the Plaza Theater, the historic Plaza Theater in Atlanta. There were some technical difficulties that happened. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties, as I said. And we had a good turnout, and that is kind of where we are currently. Now, before the premiere took place, we had actually gotten a distribution deal, which is usually not the order of how things work. But because of something called COVID-19, a lot of things didn't work the way they were supposed to work, because unfortunately when we finished the movie was right when the pandemic struck. So we had this movie that we had finished, but there was nothing we could do with it because all of the movie theaters had shut down. No one's doing anything. For a little bit there, some of the theaters were actually asking for independent content because they didn't have anything else to show, because all the big studios were shut down. We thought that was going to be our sort of big break. We didn't get on that bandwagon in time, so we ended up sending our press materials or screener out to several different distributors and sales agents. A few of them responded, which was actually new for me because I'm used to having to kind of just pick whoever is willing to take it. In this case, we had several distributors who actually wanted it, which was a cool feeling. We had a meeting with one called Mutiny Pictures, I want to say was the name of the distributor. I've kind of forgotten about it now because not super happy with how that went down. But we had a good meeting with them. Everything sounded good. It seemed like they understood who the target audience was for the movie, and we signed a deal with them. And over the course of the next 5 or 6 months, they were supposed to do all these things to get our movie out and sold to the markets. Unfortunately, that never happened. Once they got the deliverables, it was nigh impossible to get in touch with them. They did not respond to emails like I thought they should. And they even told me, I even stressed to them how I had struggled with the same problem with a previous distributor, which they were familiar with. And they said, no worries, we don't do that here. You won't have any problems with communication from us. We'll make sure that you're always in the loop. And I don't know where the ball got dropped, but I was definitely not in the loop. Communication was next to none. So I had to hound them for months before they finally came back and said, hey, look, you know what? We haven't really done anything with your movie. And they kind of I don't know if they were making excuses. I don't know if it was true. I don't know what the case is because there was no proof of anything. They didn't have any documentation of what they had or hadn't done. Not even a list of places they had submitted to. They just said that nobody wanted it. And I was like, I really don't believe that, but if that's the reason you're giving me, cool, whatever. The only good that came out of that was that they actually offered to relinquish the rights to my movie back to me because they couldn't do anything with it and with no cost to me. So I will say that's one positive thing that came out of it, because technically we signed the contract, the movie, we were supposed to go through all the motions of going through the contract, and, we would be in breach of contract if I was just like, hey, I want my movie back. But they were nice enough to just relinquish it back to me so that I could do something else with it. So that is where we are right now. And for the past couple of months, I've been doing research and trying to figure out the best way to go, because I really didn't want to go the same route again because we're having so many issues doing that. And honestly, the distribution landscape for indie films, especially ones that are really, really low budget like mine, isn't particularly great because most of the distributors are pretty predatory. They're not really looking out for you. They're looking out for themselves. They're just trying to make as much money as they can.
Here comes the money. Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money. Money, money,
dollar.
Which is understandable, but that leaves us filmmakers in kind of a rough position. So in doing some research, I came across a YouTube channel from a gentleman by the name of Jason Horton, who has posted a lot of videos about a platform called Film Hub. And if you don't know what Film Hub is, basically it's sort of like an online distribution platform for indie filmmakers, where you essentially submit your film to them, and then they have relationships with multiple different streaming platforms, and they will basically pitch your movie for you to those different streaming platforms, and then those streaming platforms will decide if they want to place your content on their platform, and then you get paid through Film Hub. So it's basically self-distribution without self-distributing, if that makes sense. They have access to platforms like Tubi, Amazon Prime. I think they just got Peacock, if I'm not mistaken, and a lot of others. They don't have Netflix. They don't have Hulu. They don't have any of the big ones like HBO Max and Disney Plus and the big ones. Just disclaimer, just providing some factual information about people who just don't understand how this works. You're not going to get on Netflix, Hulu, or any of the big platforms without some kind of studio backing or winning a major award at a film festival or some sort of anomaly. They just don't pick up indie stuff like that anymore. It's very, 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 very difficult to get on those platforms unless you are a studio or your film has been ordered by a studio and it is a Netflix original production. So that's kind of what you got to just, change your expectations, understand where you're going to fall into the distribution landscape, and you'll be okay. Like I said, a lot of people want to try to get their stuff on Netflix. It's probably not going to happen. Not to rain on anybody's parade. I wish you the best, and if you want to try for that, cool. But, just the reality of it is. So at this point in time, we've decided that instead of trying to go through a distributor again, we would use Film Hub, because it seemed like a good way to get our movie out to the platforms that it was going to end up on anyway, even through the distributor, but they don't get to take a cut of it. All of the profits come back to us, which means I can distribute the profits out to the people who are owed money still, and we might stand a chance of actually making a profit. Now, the downside to using Film Hub is that because a normal distributor will have access to marketing tools and advertising that we won't have access to, that is the main draw of having a traditional distributor, is the marketing. And so, as you'll see in multitudes of other filmmaking videos about distribution and about how to get your film sold and all that good stuff, the number one thing that people forget about and don't actually devote any kind of funding to or budget to is the marketing. And marketing is so important. And we have a lot of tools to do it now. Facebook, social media, Reddit. You could even put stuff on YouTube and things like that to try to get the word out about your film. But, honestly, you should be building a buzz for your movie from day one. It shouldn't start once the movie is finished. You should be building buzz for your movie from the second that you start filming it. And that's what we try to do. Our Facebook page, we would push all kinds of little interesting content. We'd have giveaways and, do things like that. We were always posting little trailers and clips and screen grabs and things to just keep people interested in it. And now we've kind of lost momentum because of COVID and because the movie hasn't actually come out yet and it's been a long time. A lot of people have forgotten about it, so we're trying to remind them. And even with videos like this, it's kind of a reminder about, we're letting you know that we're still here, we're still working on stuff. So all that's left to do at this point is Film Hub requires some all of the deliverables that even a traditional distributor would ask for. You got to have a copy of the movie. You got to have poster, art, digital images, stills, cast list, all of the information about your movie. And Film Hub has all of that laid out. There's instructions on how to get the things that they ask for, and it's very easy to do. The only difficult part that we ran into, honestly, is that they require your project to have closed captioning, and you can't just like do it through like YouTube or something. You actually have to have like legitimate broadcast quality closed captioning, and you can do that in software like Adobe Premiere. You can do it yourself in Adobe Premiere. Is super tedious, and for something like a feature film, it takes ages because you have to go in and correct all of the mistakes that it makes because it's not perfect. It does have auto transcription. There's better tools to do it with now, things like Descript, and there's a couple of others, I believe. But most people will tell you that what they recommend you do is take your film to a service like rev.com, which is a transcription service where they have basically people who will do it for you, and you just pay a fee and then they do it for you. And then it is exactly what Film Hub needs. So that's what we're going to do. I was trying to do it myself originally. It was just taking too long. And I kept getting feedback from Film Hub basically saying that it wasn't right. So I'm just going to let rev.com do it and call it a day. That's what I would recommend anyone do. It costs a little bit of money. I think I don't remember exactly what the cost is, but it's per minute of film. So the longer your movie is, the more expensive it is. So like a short film wouldn't be too bad. But a feature, I think ours is like 2 hours and 4 minutes. So it's a little bit of change. And then when you're working on a low budget like we are, every penny counts. So yeah, we're currently trying to finish the rest of the Film Hub, deliverables that they have asked for. And once that is done, they will submit our movie to all of the different streaming platforms, and then we just have to wait and see which streaming platforms actually accept it to place it on their platform. So not too long down the line, we will be having hopefully a streaming release of my movie, The Marks. I'm working on a DVD and Blu-ray currently right now that we're just going to be self-distributing ourselves. We'll probably just have a little shop where you can order it, you can pre-order it, just to draw in a little bit of extra funds. The DVD, market is not really what it once was because of all the streaming that's available now. So we still want to do it because a lot of people still like to collect the physical media. I'm one of them. So we're working on the artwork for the DVD, the artwork for the Blu-ray, and all the DVD and Blu-ray will have some special features and some deleted scenes that you won't be able to watch if you only watch it on the streaming platforms, because they don't usually include any of that stuff, which will be really cool. So I look forward to that. I hope that you will check out my movie, The Marks, coming out sometime in the near future. Share the trailer with your friends. If you have somebody that who likes wrestling that might be interested in the movie, share the trailer with them. That is how we get the word out about the film. I'm going to be making a lot more videos about filmmaking, and editing and acting and all the things that go into making a movie, and I hope you stick around for that. Until next time.